is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson on Demand.
Heat emergency in effect for Cincinnati. If you don't like the wild weather swings, you need to do your part to save the planet. You need to create as much carbon as you can. Are you doing your part? Well, if you need some extra help, you can join a lot of other concerned citizens, people who care about the planet and care about plants and trees. People like me at our giant Carbon Sense Carbon Party coming up Sunday, Vino Clet Winery. It's this Sunday, 1 to 5. It'll be big fun out there because, you know what, saving the planet's a lot of work, but it should also be fun. It'll be a good time. Our Carbon Party as we offset the offsets of the people who don't care about the planet, as we create as much carbon and carbon dioxide in order to save the plants and the planet. It's Sunday, 1 to 5, Vino Clet Winery. Please join me out there. It seems as though there is a new La Cosa Nostra, the mob. It's been around for a while, apparently. It has even more power, and we accept it because it's part of the government. You know the mantra, right? I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. An offer you can't refuse. It seems as though our federal government, and certainly some of its agencies, are like the mob, La Cosa Nostra. We're going to make you an offer you can't refuse. I hold right here in my hand a multi-page document, 12 pages. It is the voluntary compliance agreement between HUD and the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority. This is yet to be officially released. I got a copy from, I was at the barber shop talking to a guy who knows somebody whose uncle works with somebody who his cousin found this when it fell off a truck. And as I go through it, it really seems that this voluntary compliance isn't voluntary at all. They put the name voluntary on it because then it sounds good. No, it's a voluntary compliance agreement, voluntarily entered into between the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority. It's voluntary. But as I go through this contract, it seems it is anything but voluntary. Well, right off, it states the complaint that on October 7th, 2009, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development notified the CMHA that it was conducting an investigation of its Section 8 housing choice voucher program. Now, you're probably aware of this complaint that was filed. Investigators blame Arnold Barnett of the Housing Authority's board of basically using the influence in that to keep certain types of housing out of certain places like Green Township. Now, first of all, I can understand anybody not wanting public housing buy. Even if I'm completely wrong about the character, the types of people, and usually what happens with public housing, whether it's a housing development, individual housing, Section 8, even if I'm completely wrong, which, let's face it, look at the public housing you know. I'm not wrong. But even if I was, what is the image out there? The attitude is that it's going to bring down the neighborhood. You don't want your kids playing in a neighborhood where there's public housing. You don't want the crime that is probably going to come with it, the drugs, all of this stuff. Therefore, your property is probably going to be worth less. And right now, that's of particular concern, seeing how housing prices in general are dropping. So I can understand why someone would use it. But the federal government says, hey, that is a violation. And what do they use? The age-old tactic of racism. They throw the race card out there that what this really comes down to is some people don't want some type of people in their neighborhood based on race. No. I want people who care about their property, people who are going to keep it up, people who are working and aren't going to bring down my property values. I don't want the culture that we've created that goes along with public housing. I don't want to be around it. If I did want to be around it, I would live near public housing, or I would live in public housing. See, if I liked that, I would just quit my job. I would play the system. I would game the system like so many other people do. If I liked public housing, I would live in public housing. If I supported the idea and attitude of many of the people, the culture, the education we're giving people, that this is the way of life, I would live in public housing. Or if I didn't think it hurt the neighborhood, or there was no crime, I would move nearby public housing. That didn't happen. I try to avoid that. There are certain things I look for in communities, and it has nothing to do with race. What it has to do with is quality of the neighborhood. Not the neighbors per se, what they look like, what they do, but the neighborhood. You can drive down a street and say, wow, these people keep up their houses. Look, their lawns are mowed. Their houses aren't in disrepair. They're keeping them up. That's probably where I want to be. You do more investigation. What are the schools like? Great. So I understand it. But the new La Cosa Nostra, known as the federal government, and in particular in this case, HUD, they're making us an offer we can't refuse. Because they found this complaint, Cincinnati, well, in particular, Hamilton County, is going to have to bend a knee to HUD, succumb to their demands. That's what's going to have to happen. I had Chris Monzel on, and I support anybody that's willing to take on this challenge, to take on the fight of the federal government. I'm just not sure you have enough money right now and enough time to get it done, or even enough support, or when it's said and done, that you really have an opportunity to win. It's not just the huge amounts of time and money when you're battling the federal government or HUD. There are so many laws that have been passed that stack the deck against you. So many people in place that support this idea that, well, we've just got to help people, so we need a big federal government that will create these housing developments with little regard to the local community and what it's going to do to property values. They're already in place. The tentacles are out there. So if the county commissioners, if the county decides they want to fight this, I'm with you. I get it. I'm not sure you can pull it off, but I'm with you. Basically, it comes down to this. Because of this violation, HUD is saying that the county and certain communities in the county, Green Township first up, is going to have to get these public housing units. They have not been forthcoming, if you ask me, with the county commissioners or other areas. They wanted to keep this voluntary compliance agreement between HUD and the CMHA a big secret, which I think speaks to some of their agenda. The game that is played is, we won't give all the facts. We'll just kind of, do what we have to as it becomes available, and that way we can downplay any opposition to it. It's one of the tactics they play. Drag their feet, don't get this information, make you file Freedom of Information Act requests, all of this stuff. That's the game they're playing. So they're going to mandate that this voluntary compliance agreement be signed. If we don't sign it, what happens? If we don't agree to it, what happens? They're going to force us to do it anyways. They'll sue. They have already found us in violation. They found us in violation, the investigators for HUD. So now HUD wants us to voluntarily agree to go along with their recommendations. That seems like a little bit of a conflict, doesn't it? Now, also comes into play is the block grant money. This is monies that the federal government offers as bribes. Now, I call them bribes. I mean, it's grants, but they're legal bribes. Hey, if you lower your speed limit to 55, we'll continue to give you federal money. Hey, if you go along with these harebrained HUD schemes, we'll give you block grant money. Block grant meaning that it can be spent on bigger things, a broader slate of things, as opposed to saying, here's grant money that will pay for this bridge. It gets to pay for many different things. It's expanded. So the local communities get lured in. They say, wow, this block grant money, excellent. We'll go ahead and take that. Yes, but there's strings attached. You've got to go along with greater government, federal government involvement in our local communities, telling you how to plan, where you should put trees and schools, and in this case, houses, housing developments, HUD housing. And a lot of them get sucked into it. Some of them got sucked into the past and may be on the hook already. Some of it will be questioned in the future. So it comes down to that offer you can't refuse. Here's what we're going to do. I'm here from HUD. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. You can build the public housing and enter into this voluntary agreement, the voluntary compliance agreement. Build the housing, then we're going to tell you how to build it and where to build it and who to use to build it. You can do that and get some block grant money, or you can do that and we sue you. There's the author. The offer is that. Either we go along with their harebrained schemes, and some communities will get block grant money, or we go along with it anyway. That's it. There's the offer we can't refuse. We're going to have to go along with it anyways, it appears, unless you want a big legal fight. I mean, we're talking a lot of time and a lot of money. And from basically what I'm seeing, we don't have a whole lot of chance of winning it. Now, if you are a county commissioner, if you are other elected servants, and you recognize what this really comes down to, forget your feelings on public housing for just a second. What this really comes down to is somebody outside, somebody in D.C. telling people in the tri-state, telling people in Green Township or Coleraine or anywhere else how they must develop their community. Who knows best? The people of Green Township? The people of Anderson, Delhi? The people of the tri-state, of Cincinnati, of Hamilton County? Who knows best for their county or city? Some bureaucratic ideologues with an agenda in D.C.? Or the city, the people who live in that city, who use those roads, who have houses there, who have vested financial interests, who have children that play there, go to school there? Who has more of a concern and more knowledge? The local people. So if you're a county commissioner or another elected servant, you have to hang on to your local power and self-determination for your area. So what does that mean? You fight this, and then next time around for the election, people campaign against you saying, look, you cost us a ton of money and didn't get anywhere. Because as I said before, you're probably not going to get anywhere fighting the federal government on this. Or if you're in the local community and you're an elected servant, you go along with it, and people like me rightfully say, why didn't you fight against this? It's the offer you can't refuse. We'll get some of your calls coming up. 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast for meteorologist Frank Marzullo. You got that smog alert in effect today. Hazy, hot, sunshine, high around 95. Hazy and muggy tonight. Overnight low around 70. Tomorrow about the same. Could see some rain develop, though, tomorrow afternoon. 77 right now at 700 WLW. Now, as you go through this voluntary compliance agreement between HUD and CMHA, how it affects the county, what the county commissioner's involvement is, the power they have or don't have, the CMHA board, the local communities, Green Township, Henderson, any of them. When you go through all of this, as I lay this out, you may say to yourself, well, I don't understand that part, or yes, but. Does it seem really, really confusing? on top of the absurdity, well, you're not alone. It is confusing. It's like peeling back layer after layer of a never-ending onion. You peel back another layer and well, what is this now? It basically comes down to you and I don't have much of a chance because we allowed our federal government to get too big and have too much say over what's going on in Greene Township and other places in Hamilton County, using our tax dollars against us for those purposes and telling us to do something that we may know is wrong for our community. That's what it comes down to. You know who should be fighting for us on our behalf? Because you may have said to yourself, well, why can't we just get our senators and congressmen to... Our senators are supposed to fight for us on our behalf when it comes to state issues. 17th Amendment changed all that. It was supposed to be a balance between the people, the federal government, and the state governments. And our state's representation in the federal government was Senate. They were supposed to be there fighting for it. Now, because they're direct elected, they are just a congressman, a representative with more power. And they're not fighting on behalf of the states. You get ideologues in there that are fighting for the same agenda that a congressman or somebody else may be fighting for, instead of saying, is this right for the state? They will not and do not do that. Jeff in Dayton, you're on the big one.
Doc, how you doing, buddy?
How are you, sir?
Hey, guys, you might as well strap up your bootlaces there and lock and load because we've already experienced this up here in Dayton. They've spread them out all over Oakwood, Kettering, Centerville, Inglewood.
And I'll bet it's been great for the area, hasn't it?
Well, there was an article in the Dayton Daily News about 2 weeks ago, Doc, and they had a big article about how the crime in the suburbs have went up 81%. In my neighborhood alone, I've had like 6 neighbors already. You know, you can't even leave your garage door open while you're out in the backyard cutting the grass. They'll come in and steal your chainsaws. They've been in my car. I've already had to call the police. I mean, it's just absurd that the government pushes these people on people that spend money on to take care of their houses and buy a house. You know what I mean?
Jeff, why are you, and obviously the author, the reporter of that article, so racist? Why are you guys so racist?
Doc, you know, not racist, just like to keep what I got, you know what I mean, what I bought and what I earned. And, you know, these places breed what we had the problem with up here a couple of weeks ago with the microwave baby lady with the 4 kids by 4 different daddies and then, you know, mad at the one daddy so she nukes her baby. This is the type of stuff that breeds, Doc. Exactly.
And it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with gender or anything else. It has to do with what we have created with our tax dollars year after year after year. Doesn't have to do with any of those other things, but that's what they will ultimately come down to. If, by some miracle, your local elected servants, your county commissioners, whoever, are able to actually tie down all of the tentacles that are battling against people who just want a nice community and be able to decide what's right for their community themselves, if they are able to tie down all of those tentacles, the final card, the final trump card that will be played by the federal government and HUD, and it has been shown in the past to be the nuclear bomb, the race card. I'm not sure they have much of a choice in this. Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson on 700 WLW. Reds taking on the Cubs today. They'll be at the Great American Ballpark in that 95-degree heat. First pitch, 12:35. Our coverage on the big one begins at about 11:35. Talking about the federal cram down by HUD. I would like to see us stand up and say we're not going to take what the federal government is mandating with our own tax dollars to do so. We need to get some more local power. I'm just not sure we have much of an option until we see a complete change in attitude, and I don't see that coming. I don't want to live in an area where there's public housing. I'm going to avoid it as much as I can. I've been subjected to too many situations where I've witnessed people in public housing, and the attitude is, hey, what do I have to keep the place up for? Hey, what do I have to work? It's give me, and it's just the wrong attitude. Often it's filled with crime. It's just not people I want to be around. I certainly don't want to be around their property or the property that they are occupying. But it may happen. Let me get to a call here. Let's get to Kevin in North College Hill.
Yeah, Doc. I've lived in North College Hill close to 30 years, and the past 10 years they've had more public housing, and you can tell the public housing because the grass is growing, they don't work, they sit outside, and I've worked for 35 years. I'm currently laid off, And I see this, and it makes me mad because the government hasn't gave me nothing. I work my butt off, and all I do is collect my unemployment check that I'm deservingly getting because I worked 35 years, and they come in, and they get this public house. You can see it in North Cottage Hill. Plain and simple, you can see the grass is growing, and they don't do nothing to their yards. And what it is, these houses are foreclosed, and they come in, and the people that buy the foreclosed house gets them and rents them out to Section 8. That way they're guaranteed their money.
Yeah, that's just the Section 8 stuff. Then you've got the stuff that's owned by CMHA as well.
Right. 2 weeks ago, we've lived, like I said, lived here 30 years, never had a bit of problem. 2 weeks ago, we had a security system put in because the past 2 years we had a guy killed 2 houses down from us, murdered at his front door. We've had more crime. I had my car, never had no problem parking my car in front of the house. About a year ago, my weed eater, my tools, and stuff was stolen out, and my radio was stolen out in front of my house.
So would you like, let me ask you this, Kevin, would you like to see the county commissioners try to fight this? It may cost a lot of money. It may not work. Would you want to see them fight it, even though it could cost millions?
Yeah, because the thing about it is it ruins the neighborhoods. Like I said, we never had a bit of problem. And now you come down here, and we're about the only ones, or maybe us and maybe 3 other families on the street that are the original owners of our houses, and you come down, you can see the Section 8 houses, plain and simple.
You know, we are so hurt with money right now, Kevin, and I agree with you. Like I said, I'd like to see them fight the thing. I think it's a worthy fight because what we're talking about is the greater issue of local control over our neighborhoods, our streets, our towns, our communities. So, yeah, but is it worth fighting if it costs us millions of dollars, and in the end, it doesn't matter anyway? What he described could be coming to Green Township and other areas as well. I get an email from a gentleman. He said, I live in the township, and I am so ticked off. Great community being destroyed already. We monitor Section 8 closely already, and one of the only communities that enforces the felony rule, that no one can occupy a HUD home if they've been convicted of a felony. We've been threatened for it by HUD. Crime will rise, but those new residents will not like how the police won't look the other way on their behavior. I'm hoping we can avoid this, but I doubt it. I'm not so sure you can. Well, one thing is for certain. If you pay attention to it, it won't be as much of a problem. If people in the community pay attention to what's going on in those HUD houses, I mean, you say we're not going to stand for this crime, we're not going to stand for your lawn not being mowed and all of this stuff, you will have less of an issue. You're still going to have issues. It's not going to go away, but it'll be less of one. In New London, Connecticut, real quick, New London is the area that the city that years ago fought all the way to the Supreme Court and won, where they could take public lands through the process of private land through the process of eminent domain and hand it over to another private citizen for development. Remember that? All right, this is the same area. They developed an entire new area along the waterfront. And it includes a big, beautiful fountain. It is a fountain of a whale tail. The fountain cost $11 million. Giant whale tail with the water flowing over the tail, and people can actually walk through it. It's one of those ones that it's kind of the interactive fountain. You see them at some amusement parks in some areas where you can walk through them, and that's okay. $11 million for the whale tail fountain. And so far, it's been used by primarily homeless people as a restroom. People have been urinating, defecating, and bathing themselves in the whale tail fountain that cost $11 million. People have also, who have cut themselves, have been using the fountain to rinse off the blood. This is what's going on. They spent $11 million on an open-air, beautiful toilet and bath for the homeless people. Money well spent. Now, I was trying to do research to find out where they got that money. It hasn't been open that long. It only started flowing. The water started flowing last month. Think of the timing on it. How long does it take you to build something like that? Probably, a year, a couple of years? My speculation is and I haven't been able to find it yet, I'm going to keep looking, that this was built with stimulus money. Do communities have money to build stuff like this right now over the last couple of years? No. The only place that people could spend on is stuff that they got from stimulus. My speculation is stimulus money. $11 million on a toilet in New London, Connecticut. Doc Thompson on the big one, 700 WLW. Doc Thompson at 700 WLW. How about this? How about we all pay an extra $1 per gallon of gasoline we buy in tax? An additional $1. How's that sound? Well, we've had a lot of people suggest that we give an extra tax on gasoline in order to pay for all kinds of things. Well, first of all, we had Secretary of Energy Chu suggest that we should do this to raise gasoline prices, and that we need to get gasoline prices up to that of Europe so we can discourage people from using gasoline-powered cars or cars in general. Then he backed off of it, but this has been a recurring theme. Now somebody new has stepped forward and said, we need $1 a gallon increase in the gasoline tax. Right now, there is a federal gasoline tax of about 18.4 cents. Well, not about, it is 18.4 cents per gallon. So every gallon of gasoline you buy, you pay 18.4 cents in federal taxes. Now, every state also has a tax on top of that. Ohio's is about 28 cents. Indiana's about 40 cents. And Kentucky's about 23 cents a gallon. So when it's all said and done, Ohio and federal taxes together, if you get gasoline in Ohio and federal tax, every gallon is costing you 46.4 cents a gallon. In Indiana, you buy gas, you pay in federal and state tax 52.2 cents a gallon. In Kentucky, 40.9 cents per gallon. Imagine every gallon of gasoline in Indiana costing you $1.52 in tax. It would basically be that for all of us. About $1.50 a gallon, no matter where you pump gas. So right now, the national average of gas, $3.77 a gallon. Nationally, you would simply add $1 to that. $4.77 a gallon. Who suggested the additional $1 in tax? The CEO of General Motors, Dan Ackerson. He said that his industry would actually be helped out by a higher gasoline tax. So he floated the idea of $1 a gallon increase in gas tax to encourage people to purchase smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. He said he would support a gas tax. A $1 increase. Now, I think this is pretty outrageous. Pretty outrageous that the guy who is CEO, head of a company, who used our federal tax dollars to ensure that company is still around. Had it not been for our federal tax dollars, it would not be around, more than likely. He now wants more money. He wants an increase in gasoline tax. GM only exists now because of our tax dollar bailout. And the CEO is asking for $1 a gallon increase in gasoline tax. That is a bad idea, and it is outrageous coming from him. That is incredible. People need to jump on this. I'm serious. He needs to be just chastised for it. How dare you, as somebody who would not have your current job and your company would not exist if it weren't for our federal dollars, which put us in greater debt, asking me to pay more money, which would probably help your company because your focus now is on those smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. It's transparent, it's outrageous, and it's wrong. Doc Thompson, 700 WLW. Tracy Jones is going to be at the Reds Hall of Fame Thursday night as part of the Hall of Fame lecture series. It's an exclusive opportunity to hear Tracy's personal stories that you won't hear during the afternoon show. You need more information, check out 700WLW.com and search events. I'm thinking about going. Now, my son's coming to town Thursday night. See if I have time, but it'll be very neat to hear Tracy tell these stories. I get to hear some of them around the office here. It's great to hear him talk about some of the other players. I know he's going to give a lecture, and then he'll do some Q&A. I don't know if that's going to be 15 minutes or a half hour, what for the Q&A, but go just to ask him the questions. No, ask him about those players that, maybe some of the other players that he used to play with, whether, Reds players or other players, any of the other teams he used to play with. Because there's a lot of them. He'll give you the insights. Oh, that guy was a goof. Or, oh, that guy was a pretty good guy. Or maybe tell you about some of his adventures. It's all coming up Thursday night, though. Charles in Norwood, you're on the big one.
Was you trying to get away from the Section 8 I called when...
No. You can comment on it.
All right. First, I want to say that I have a lot of experience with Section 8, lived around them. And I want to say, first of all the Section 8 people that I have met and lived next to were white. Now, here's what I want to say that they haven't mentioned about Section 8. This is the one thing they all do. They don't sleep at night. They stay up till 4 in the morning, and they laugh and they party and they talk. And you can't sleep if you live around them because you can hear them out there laughing and hollering, and they just don't have a bedtime.
No, I'm laughing, Charles, not at you, but I'm laughing because you're right. That's my experience with public housing in general, not just Section 8.
They don't sleep. And they walk the streets at noon. You'll have people walking by your house constantly. Where if they're not there, you never see anybody. But they don't sleep, and they're out every afternoon. Another thing, all their children say yes or no, sir, and thank you. And they all have new bikes often. I mean, if they have a new bike, they take them apart, and then they put them together, then they find somebody who wants to buy them, and the next thing you see them, they've got another new bike. And that's another thing about them. The kids all get new bicycles. Where they get them, I don't know. And that's two of the big things that I remember.
Well, I appreciate you calling and sharing that. Those are my experiences as well. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but I think the general rule is that's what goes on. We know that. That's no secret. Up all night, partying, hanging out, doing whatever, carrying on, and sleeping late. Why? Because you have no place to go. Not going anywhere. Lisa, North College Hill, you're on the big one.
Hey, Doc, I'm living the HUD dream, too. I'm from North College Hill, and when Kevin called, I think I answered my own question. I was going to ask you how local tax fits into this, but I just think a couple of years ago, the federal government offered us half money for a brand new school if the local residents put up the other half. Well, every homeowner, I'm a homeowner, only one I know voted for that to get that. So all of a sudden we have a new school, and we went from a very beautiful Mayberry to the worst place in town you can think of. And I'm just devastated over what has happened to my hometown.
I can certainly understand that. Would you think that areas that currently don't have great representation of HUD housing is in for a bit of a shock when it comes to their town?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things is those big new, brand new, shiny schools is one of their ways in, because everybody was stoked about it. Oh, we get this new school, but guess what? Our whole town has changed. The crime has risen. You see us on the news quite often now, which before nobody even knew of us.
Well, I think, Lisa, what happens too at the schools, it's like a new road. We think somehow naively that, we build a new school or we build a new road. We forget the upkeep of those is huge. That's the reason a couple years down the road, you always get the inevitable levy. Oh, we need to keep it up. We need operating. It just goes on and on. We need, construction for the school or upkeep or maintenance, whatever. That's the reason they keep putting it out there. Roads are the same way. And the same is true when it comes to HUD. Whether it's local, federal, state level, and quite often all of them, you're on the hook for this stuff. Some of it you're paying multiple times over while your community suffers, while you're seeing an increase in crime and stuff. As Chris Monzel said, I think it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, that CMHA quite often can't keep up with the maintenance on this stuff. They can't keep up with it, so they need to come after for more money somehow. Who's paying for it? Either they get it from the feds or the state, which we're paying for, or they get it locally. Doc Thompson on the home of the Reds, 700 WLW.